Apple ginger sour cherry, delicious.
Okay, but talk more about it. What are the notes?
I got a little bit of apple, tangy, but in a good way. It's got a nice aftertaste. It tastes like day, like you're in New England. You're going like picking pumpkins.
Yes, that's why I created
Maybe in Boston at a flower shop.
Yes. Honestly, I went to an apple orchard in New York, in upstate New York, and bought fresh apple cider from there, and then had my Betty Buzz. It's a mixture, it's just like ginger.
Wow.
Real, not sugary. It's really good.
Hold on to your phones because something wild just dropped, and no one's talking about it loud enough. Newly unsealed texts and emails have exposed what looks like a full-blown smear campaign allegedly launched against Blake Lively by none other than her former collaborators. We're talking private PR memos, strategy decks, and thousands of dollars a month funneled into hush-hush digital warfare. And yes, the name Justin Baldoni is all over it. But here's the twist. While that bomb was going off, a judge quietly tossed Baldoni's massive lawsuits against Blake, Ryan Reynolds, and even the New York Times. That's not a quiet loss. That's a legal slap. And if that wasn't enough, newly surfaced transcripts revealed that Baldoni's own agent used the word extortion to describe Blake's behind-the-scenes behavior. The story is spinning fast, and it's no longer just about one lawsuit. It's about leaked recordings, broken NDAs, shady texts, and a Hollywood power war that's getting uglier by the minute. So here's where things take a dark turn. Just a few weeks ago, a federal judge unsealed a trove of private communications, emails and text messages that could completely reshape how the public sees this entire case. These weren't casual back and forths. They were coordinated discussions between members of Justin Baldoni's inner circle, allegedly mapping out a full-scale, precision-targeted smear campaign against Blake Lively. According to court filings, the plan wasn't just about damage control, it was about narrative control. The documents reference tactics like countering media spin, deploying anonymous social accounts, and engaging targeted influencer networks. In plain English, that means ghost accounts, planted narratives, and quiet online digs designed to make Blake look unstable, manipulative, or both.
I didn't get to know Isabella while making the movie because we met a couple times, but we weren't working together. Yeah. And Colleen is really the one who, Colleen connected with me. But Colleen was incredible in saying, like, okay, the book is one thing and the movie also is another thing. And we have to make sure that we're not making a replica of the book if it isn't always the best and most authentic choice for the moment. And I think because of that, it's a very true adaptation of the book. Like, it is very, very, very true to the book. And
even crazier, the documents reveal this campaign could have cost up to $30,000 a month. That's not rumor money. That's a budgeted operation. One of the leaked notes reportedly even outlines a risk mitigation timeline, corporate code for how to bury the story before it caught fire online. And while all of this was happening behind the scenes, Justin's team was publicly denying any bad blood, brushing off Blake's claims as misunderstandings. Meanwhile, the emails were telling a completely different story. One of calculation, coordination, and quiet control, where reputation wasn't being defended, it was being weaponized. But here's the kicker. These leaks didn't just expose Baldoni's alleged plan, they might have doomed his own defense. Because almost immediately after those documents hit the public record, the court dropped a bomb of its own. What happened next? A federal judge tossed Baldoni's entire counterattack. Right after those smear campaign texts were unsealed, the courtroom delivered a plot twist no one saw coming. Justin Baldoni's entire $400 million lawsuit, gone, dismissed, wiped clean off the table by a judge who clearly wasn't buying the story he was selling. Baldoni had accused Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and the New York Times of defamation, extortion, and orchestrating a coordinated takedown, claiming they conspired to destroy his reputation, derail his career, and control the narrative around "It Ends With Us." But once the leaks surfaced, that narrative flipped on him, and fast. Sounds dramatic, right? The court thought so too, but not in the way Baldoni hoped. The judge ruled that his defamation and extortion claims were, quote, legally insufficient. Translation, the accusations didn't hold enough weight to even make it to trial. In plain terms, the court basically said, there's no case here. This doesn't meet the standard for what you're accusing them of. And here's why that matters. Without that lawsuit, Baldoni loses his biggest legal weapon. That countersuit was supposed to be both his defense and his revenge, a way to flip the story and make himself the victim. But with one ruling, the court stripped that away, leaving his entire narrative, his carefully built PR shield, collapsing in real time. Now he's back on defense and bleeding credibility. Even more damaging, legal experts are saying that the court's decision to dismiss all his claims so quickly could cripple his standing in any future proceedings. Because if a federal judge doesn't believe you were defamed and doesn't think you were extorted, what does that say about your entire narrative? But don't get comfortable, this story isn't done yet. While the lawsuits were collapsing, new testimony began surfacing, and one word buried deep in a deposition started turning heads everywhere. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get more intense, a single word flipped the narrative again: extortion. It came from Danny Greenberg, a longtime Hollywood agent who'd worked closely with Justin Baldoni and helped guide him through the chaos behind the scenes. In a newly surfaced deposition, Greenberg admitted that he personally drafted messages for Baldoni to send to Sony executives, and those messages weren't exactly subtle. In one of them, Blake Lively's behavior was described as, quote, continued extortion and an effort to gain control of the film. That single word, dropped in a sworn statement, changed everything. It wasn't coming from tabloids or gossip accounts anymore. It was coming from inside Baldoni's own camp. Yes, extortion. That's not a word agents just throw around, especially not in official documents. And here's the thing, Greenberg didn't just whisper it, he put it in writing. He sent it to Sony. He advised Justin to use it publicly. When pressed in court about the language, Greenberg tried to soften the blow, claiming it felt appropriate at the time, and that it was merely a reflection of tension between the two stars. But the damage was already done. Because when your own team uses words like extortion, it doesn't just bruise reputations, it reshapes the entire story. Suddenly, the question wasn't just whether Blake Lively was standing up for herself, it was whether she was fighting for accountability or fighting for control. Was she genuinely trying to call out misconduct? Or, as Greenberg's phrasing implied, was she maneuvering for leverage over the film's edit, release, and legacy? The texts go even deeper. In one exchange, Greenberg describes Blake as someone who dissects energy and personality, suggesting she was overly analytical, overly critical, and difficult to work with. He even advises Baldoni to stay contrite, to keep Sony on his side and avoid escalating the conflict. What's wild is that Greenberg is the same agent who eventually dropped Baldoni as a client. So why is he still semi-defending him under oath? And if he truly believed Blake was acting in bad faith, why cut ties with Justin at all? These contradictions make the entire situation murkier, messier, and far more combustible than anyone expected. But one thing is certain. That single word, extortion, might end up doing more damage to Blake's case than any court filing ever could. And that brings us to the bigger question no one wants to ask. Was this really about harassment or was it about power? Because before the texts, before the depositions, before the judge threw anything out, this all started with one explosive lawsuit. In December 2024, Blake Lively filed a stunning 80-page complaint accusing Justin Baldoni of sexual harassment, professional misconduct, and, here's the kicker, orchestrating a coordinated smear campaign to destroy her reputation after she spoke up. According to the filing, Blake described a deeply uncomfortable working environment on the set of It Ends With Us. She claimed Baldoni, who was both directing and co-starring in the film, crossed professional boundaries repeatedly, improvising intimate scenes without warning and leaving her blindsided in front of cast and crew. But the most chilling part? Blake alleged that once she voiced her concerns, everything changed after that. Meetings disappeared, communication grew cold, and soon after, the whispers started. Anonymous sources in entertainment columns calling Blake difficult, manipulative, even unstable. Her legal team didn't buy the coincidence. They called it what they believed it was, retaliation. A deliberate campaign to undermine her credibility and isolate her from the very project she had helped bring to life. In court, her lawyers pointed to sudden shifts in press strategy, alleged back-channel conversations between producers and studio execs, and a conveniently curated media narrative that painted her as the problem. And Blake wasn't standing alone. Her lawsuit included supporting declarations, one from an indie director named Claire Lieb, we'll come back to her later, who claimed she'd experienced similar behavior from Baldoni on a separate film and fully backed Blake's descriptions of his conduct. At the time, public reaction was divided. Some saw Blake's lawsuit as a bold and overdue move to confront Hollywood's quiet power hierarchies. Others questioned her timing and motives, citing rumored creative disputes. particularly Blake's push for a stronger voice in the film's final edit. But whatever people believed, the shockwaves were immediate. Headlines exploded. Social media split into factions. Hashtags trended. And Baldoni, he didn't stay quiet for long. Within weeks, he came back swinging with a $400 million countersuit, claiming that Blake was weaponizing harassment allegations as a strategy for creative control. It was a scorched earth response, one that turned a private dispute into a public spectacle. And that brings us right back to the tapes, the texts, and the unraveling chaos playing out in real time. Because what if Blake wasn't the only one moving behind the scenes? The next part of this story isn't about court filings or social media statements, it's about secret recordings, a mysterious declarant, and a tape that might have broken the law just by existing. While headlines screamed about lawsuits and leaked texts, the real story was unfolding in whispers, subtle moves, quiet exits, and the sudden shuttering of something that once defined Justin Baldoni's public image. In early 2025, without warning or fanfare, the Wayfarer Foundation, Baldoni's philanthropic arm, was quietly shut down. This was the same organization he had spent years championing as a symbol of compassion, human dignity, and social healing. Its mission had been to serve the unhoused and elevate the marginalized, a cause he spoke about in TED Talks, interviews, and charity galas. But now it was gone. No press release. No farewell video, just closed. To some, the timing looked like damage control, a strategic retreat as Baldoni's public image began to fracture under legal scrutiny. To others, it felt like something deeper, the emotional unraveling of a man trying to salvage what was left of his reputation by quietly trimming every possible liability. And then, there was Blake Lively, who took the opposite approach. She disappeared, not from Hollywood entirely, but from sight. Sources say Blake and Ryan Reynolds quietly retreated to their $6 million countryside estate, far from Los Angeles' flashing cameras and TMZ's whispers. No red carpets. No Fashion Week appearances. No paparazzi strolls with the kids. No paparazzi strolls with the kids. Just silence, but make no mistake, this wasn't surrender. It was strategy. It was a strategic low profile, laying low while the storm passed, or while the next chess piece was quietly moved into position. Because if there's one thing we've learned from this entire saga, it's this. Every move means something. Closing a foundation isn't just cutting costs. It's closing a chapter. Retreating to a remote estate isn't hiding. It's preparing for the next act. And in that next act, new players would step in, old allies would resurface, and a secret tape, possibly illegal, would find its way directly into Blake Lively's hands. So the question became, who gave it to her? And why? Now let's talk about the wild card that sent this entire narrative spinning sideways, a little-known indie director with a tape that could tip the balance. When Blake filed her lawsuit, she included a declaration from a mystery supporter who claimed to have had her own disturbing experiences with Justin Baldoni. For weeks, fans and legal insiders speculated about the identity of this mystery declarant. Who was she? And why had she decided to step forward now? Then, boom, the name dropped. Claire Ayub, writer and director of a small-budget film called Empire Waste. If you've never heard of it, you're not alone.